Family, did you know that there are actually nearly 60,000 African American kids who are between the ages of kindergarten and 12th grade living right here in Milwaukee? And so, one of the things that we wanted to do was a special series. It's called the WNOV Educational Excellence Series. And we reached out to schools across the city, public, private, charter, religious. And we wanted to make sure to talk to folks to find some of the jewels out here that are providing an excellent education for our kids that maybe you don't know about. So often we find out that parents maybe just weren't aware of the programs and all of the benefits that are available to help them and their kids to grow and to reach their full potential. So we went around and we did the work for you, family, and we got an incredible school today to talk to, ASSATA High School, and Tamika Isabel, who is an administrator there, is joining us. And we already had a conversation at the school and a tour. I'm telling you right now, there's no way we're going to get all of it in to this hour, but we're going to try our best. So
Yes.
welcome, Tamika.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. So,
Oh no, this is wonderful, and I'm telling you, I'm excited about what you're doing. This is one of the schools that I wasn't aware of before I went out, and so I'm really grateful that WNOV allowed us to put this series together, because I
yes.
think, you know, so many of us just are not aware. We hear so many other things happening with MPS, and then find out there's some incredible schools, some incredible programs that are available, and yours is definitely one of those. So we want to make sure that we have this conversation. So talk to us a little bit about what is ASSATA High School.
So, Asada High School is an alternative high school for undercredit overage students. So, our scholars come to us ranging from the age of 16 to 21, considering if they have an IEP or considered a student with disabilities. The uniqueness about our program is that the overage undercredited. So they have to come to us already academically behind, showing some type of academic deficiency, which then qualifies them, according to Wisconsin statute, to fall into one of the categories of being considered at risk.
Mhm.
So at that time, it's kind of like, how do we resuscitate the educational dream in those? We call our students scholars,
Mhm.
to get them back educationally engaged and pursuing their dreams and future aspirations. Unfortunately, when they get to us, they're kind of in a sense of hopelessness.
Was you talked to me about when I visited with you that a lot of kids who are behind, they've been behind for some time,
Yes,
and that both they and maybe even their parents tend to start giving up because they've had issues. Maybe the kind of school environment they've been in before didn't really feed them, wasn't really responding to their need, and so by the time they find out about you, they're already a little despondent, they're already a little frustrated. They've already kind of given up a little bit of that drive to be involved.
yes. As I previously stated, they have to meet a criteria.
Hmm.
So those criterias may be habitually truant from school,
Okay.
um, at least one or two grade levels behind in math or reading test scores, a year behind in credits.
Hmm.
So our ninth grade scholar is not your straight out of eighth grade
Okay.
scholar. They have gone to high school and at least failed 1 to 2 years, and now their goal or their family goal is for them to at least earn a high school diploma.
Yeah, so you're catching them up. You're making it
Yes,
possible instead of them simply. I think the system has before been like, if this doesn't work for you, they just drop out, right? They just
absolutely.
don't make it. Yours is really a school that helps catch those kids so that there's an alternative for them, so they can actually finish high school. They can actually get engaged. You told me some incredible success stories that I'm sure we're going
Yes.
to get to before we are done with this.
Yes.
But it's amazing to hear some of the stories of like kids who went from being a year or more behind to now excelling and doing some incredible professional roles here in our community today. So you all are doing
Yes.
some incredible work.
Yes. And it's tedious. The thing about our program is that it is tailor made to the scholar.
Hmm.
And so I think when people think of alternative, they think of what we used to traditionally have as alternative schools, which were schools for behavioral
Right.
students. Um, ASSATA is alternative in the perspective that we offer an alternative path.
Hmm.
So I may have a scholar who is working full time, totally being the head of the household, who may need some modifications to their school day schedule.
Hmm.
So we tailor things to the specific scholar or the family needs, not so much as such a traditional framework. So again, we say alternative is an alternative path to earning your high school diploma. Not so much of the alternative as this. All of these scholars that come
Right.
to us are bad
Right.
students.
This is not a juvenile justice issue.
No.
This is really, hey, just the prior schools have not worked for this kid, or life circumstances have changed for the child,
Yes.
and or the young adult, I should say,
Yes. Yes.
have really changed, and maybe they can't go to a traditional school in traditional hours and doing all that stuff. So, you know, you serve. A small population of
Yes.
kids, right? I mean, the whole school is 120, all four grades, right?
Yes. 9 through 12.
Right. So, I mean, this is incredible because we always hear these stories of like these oversized classrooms and, somebody who's trying to juggle 30 kids at a time.
Yeah.
That's not a SADA high school.
No, our teachers have no more than 15 to 20 students in a class. And with that, our entire staff are a part of our data processing team or progressing team. That means that we have a data day. And for data day, everybody in the building is a part of that process. So my security guards know our scholars' grades, attendance percentage, behavioral issues, our cafeteria women. They are a part of this process because each of them have a different relationship with the scholars, right? And so if I've built a relationship with the scholar, and I'm now having a conversation with them, we have a framework called the ABCs. A is for academics, B is for behavior, and that behavior is also their attendance, and then C is for their coursework.
Hmm.
So if I have this relationship with this scholar, yet I can never talk to them about their academics, their behavior, or the climate and culture, or, are you participating? Have you signed up for a pre-college program? And we don't just want that to be the responsibilities of the educators. That
Okay.
is the responsibility of our entire building.
So, this is a whole village
Yes,
approach.
yes, yes.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
incredible. So, when you're doing this, this school, we talked earlier about, hey, WNOV, we reached out to public, private, charter. We also talked to the schools of choice. We reached out to parochial schools. The one category that I didn't think of was contracted.
Yes.
And ASSATA is a contracted partner school for MPS. Could you explain what that is?
So being a partnership contracted school with NPS, our partnership is NPS provides us with some services. We have a teacher to be able to serve students who have or students with disabilities.
Hmm.
We have a school psychologist and a school social worker. Sometimes when you're a charter or choice school, you don't have those resources.
Hmm.
NPS provides those resources for us.
Wow.
Our scholars are also NPS students. So with
Okay.
that, our scholars can participate in driver's education courses for free. Our scholars can, although we don't offer sports, our scholars can play sports through Obama High
Yeah.
School. So although we
Well,
don't
wait,
have
wait. You
some
told me about
research,
the cheerleaders too.
yes. So we had a group of young ladies who, so any sport that Obama offers,
Yeah.
our scholars can, as long as they're meeting the graduation requirement
Hmm.
and do the physical, they can participate in those fall, winter,
Yeah.
spring sports. So we had a few young ladies that were really interested in cheerleading. Um, they went over to Obama. I have a young man who has played with Obama for 2 years, have been conference mentioned for both offense and defense. And so our young ladies went over to Obama, and one of my young ladies has such leadership skills that the young ladies at Obama voted her the cheerleading captain.
So she's at
Um,
your school.
yes.
but she's able to go participate over there, and the over there decided that she was the leader they needed as the squad captain.
Yes.
That's an amazing thing.
Yes. So finding those resources, right? Finding those ways of what are our scholars' needs, and if we don't have them within our community, where do they exist,
Yeah.
and how do we bridge that gap?
Well, you know, one of the things that I was really struck by was, this is a school that came out of one person's dream, right?
Yes.
And so I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about the history of how this school, came together.
So our founder, Miss Rose Freeman Massey, was a professor at MATC in their social studies department. She's actually one of the trailblazers of the Black Student Union over at MATC. And so after being a professor there for years, she noticed that students who were coming out of public school settings or educational settings, period, were coming to MATC lacking the basic reading math skills. And so she wanted to create a platform where scholars could come and receive an education again where I can get a lot of one-on-one. The classrooms aren't 30, but they're 15, where people can notice me and really help me with the needs that I have. So in 1992, her and Dr. Howard Fuller got together and they did a collaboration, and through that collaboration, ASSATA was birthed. Starting out on Sherman in a church, and being able to now evolve to us now being on 35th and Cortland.
Yeah. So, the incredible thing to me was that, somebody could actually take that dream and then make it come true
Yes.
to actually have a school. So many folks will talk about, the class sizes matter.
Yes.
Right. And the idea that you actually have classes that are maybe half of what some other
Yes.
school classes would be.
Yes.
What difference does that make? As a parent thinks about, hey, my kid didn't succeed in these other environments. What does it matter that you have a school or class size that is half what some other schools might be experiencing?
So it allows us to pay attention to every scholar that's enrolled in our program. It's really funny. I had a parent that I bumped into at a professional training, and she remembered a parent meeting that I had with her that still stuck out to her, and her daughter may have graduated about 5 years ago.
Wow.
So it's not just about the academic. We also get a chance to tap into the social, emotional, mental, physical needs of our scholars. Because we are so one-on-one with them, families will call us and say, my daughter didn't come home last night. Can you talk to her when she gets to school if she show up? We can have scholars that are the home climate is not the best, but they'll still show up to school and talk to us about this is what's going on. So building those relationships, it allow us to be more interpersonal with our scholars. Whereas at other schools, it may have been so big that no one noticed me.
So they just checked out.
So they checked out.
Nobody noticed that they checked out.
It's so interesting that even in our professional developments, we notice that we have scholars that intentionally go and sit in the back of the class. And I will ask the teacher, why do you think that scholar goes straight to the back? And of course, we know we go to the back because we don't want anyone to notice us. So it's so strategic that our teachers on certain days of the week will start to help kids in the front of the class, but on those alternate days, they'll start from the back of the class. Because I need that scholar that's sitting in the back of the class to know that I notice you just as much as the scholar that's sitting in the front of the class. And so there is no opportunity to hide or to get away with. At ASSATA, we know you and we will notice you. And from there, try to make sure we begin to meet your needs if we can.
Wow. So you talked to me about, when I got a chance to visit, you talked to me about the fact that, there are families, there are parents. I should leave it at, there are families, right?
Yeah.
Not just the parents, who are just frustrated. They're worn out. Maybe they've been through the whole cycle. Their kid has been through multiple schools. They've now had this issue of, maybe the kid did not succeed in the first and the second and the third instances. They're behind. The system's calling them. Maybe there's truancy involved. The kid's not involved in school. They're having to deal with all this. So you talked to me before about just the weariness of some of the parents, and I wanted to bring that out because I want it's wonderful when kids catch fire and they're excited about school and they're excited about learning. That's wonderful. That's not everybody's experience.
Yes.
And I wanted you to just kind of talk about the reality of meeting people where they're at,
Yes.
and what you do with that conversation when you finally find that family or they finally found you.
Yes. So we have an interview process where we sit down with the family just to kind of be transparent about our expectations and learn about their expectations, but most importantly, their experience with educational institutions. The reality of it is we're getting ready to get into a relationship.
Yeah.
And so within that relationship, we would like to know what are the trust barriers that are possibly existing. Um, because if the trust is not there, it is going to be extremely hard,
Yeah.
right? And so what we want to make sure is that we have all agreed to the expectations that are there so that the family and the scholar understands the SATA expectations and then we understand theirs. And once we have a shared agreement upon those things, then we move forward. The one important thing during those interviews is that I really reiterate to the families that this is not the end all to the kids' educational matriculation, probably. Because a lot of the times the parents are weary. I'm tired. This is your third school. This is your fourth school. If you can't make it here, I'm not going to another school. I'm not signing you up for anything else. I am done. And in those moments, I say, no, we may want to pursue future aspirations. And if we make this be the cutoff and I need to go to MATC, right, then I now feel like this is the end all. So we're not going to stop with saying this is your last chance. This is your last opportunity. No, this is the newness of the next opportunity for you.
Yeah.
So this is not the end. This is the beginning of a new path. And once I present it that way, families and both scholars kind of say, okay, right? I know I may not have done as well as I needed to do then, but I'm going to try to do better here.
Okay.
And as long as that attempt is there, then we can continue to work with that. But I understand a lot of families' frustration. And like I say again, the trust issue for them to understand that we're just because we're educational institution, we're not like the others.
Yeah.
And I say that with the amount of communication that we do. Not only just talking to you about academics, in my teachers or in our teachers' classroom management plan, they cannot just have consequences. They also have to have rewards. And the reason for that is if I only have consequences, then I'm only looking for the misbehaviors. But if I have rewards, then I'm looking for both, right? And I should in a community, there shouldn't just be a way for me to be penalized for what I'm doing wrong. There should also be a way for me to be rewarded for the things that I'm doing.
Reaffirm that positivity, the fact that you're moving in the right direction.
Yes. Yes.
No, that makes sense. So what are some of those trust barriers that you run into with families?
Oh boy. I would say on the scholar's perspective, they are under the impression that we will always take the adult word. So at ASSATA, if a scholar is not seeing eye to eye with any adult in the building, they have a right to find another trusted adult to sit down and have a mediation with that adult. Wow. The reason why we say that is because at ASSATA, our scholars have a voice. And I say that because if we don't teach them how to use their voice, then how do we expect them to go out into the world and be productive citizens?
Wow. Well, we're going to pick it right up, right back from here, right after this break. special edition of The Difference with me, Will Martin. And, WNOV was concerned about the fact that we have 58,000 African American kids between the ages for kindergarten up to 12th grade, and that so many families don't know about what the educational options are out here. We reached out to a couple of hundred schools and reached out to find out from them, what are you doing, what's the difference that you're making, etc. And we had some schools that stepped up and decided to be K-12 partners with WNOV as part of our educational excellence series, so that we can start to educate families on some of the best that Milwaukee's schools, and we reached out to public, private, charter, now contracted as well, and wanted to make sure to present. And so we're talking today with Tamika Isabel, who is one of the administrators at ASSATA High School. And this is a special high school that really is small class size. It's amazing to me, all the things we talk about that are great about educational environments: small class size, small school overall, lots of communication and engagement with families. And I think you talked to me about the difference between involvement and engagement. See, I was
Yes.
listening.
Yes.
I got some of these lessons when I came over to visit. You were talking fast, but I got some of the lessons down, right?
Yes.
So, but some of the things that we talk about that we don't normally think of as an urban school environment,
Yes.
you're doing all that. And then there's so many different partnerships that you have involved.
Yes.
So for kids who are behind, and you talk about, typically they're at least a year behind academically,
Yes.
that you were an alternative for those kids to not have to drop out, to not become a statistic,
Yes.
right? Or at least not
Yes.
become a negative statistic,
Right.
right? That they can actually finish their education, and many of them can finish it within that time frame that they have left.
Yes.
So just talk a little bit about, kind of the supportive services that you're able to offer. I just was amazed by some of the things that you're able to do.
Yeah. So one of the communication is very key. Um Sometimes our parents, if parents are always being notified because the scholar is misbehaving, you may get blocked.
Right, because they're already ready for being
Yeah.
on blast.
Right. So we try to make sure that families receive good phone calls as well. We want to make sure that they have the reassurance that bringing a scholar to ASSATA was a good decision, and that the revivement of the educational dream is happening. And so as we begin to work, as I say, it's a relationship. So within that relationship, we get to know who we're working with. And once we notice a scholar may need social emotional resources, then we connect them with our school social worker or our school site to begin to do some digger deeping into their historical past, or talking to the family about some of the needs that are available in Milwaukee County. So sometimes those partnerships go through Children's Hospital. Sometimes those partnerships, now we're working with Holy Redeemer, who now has their health clinic and mental health clinic. They are doing their grand opening today. We are trying to make sure we eliminate those barriers, because these are young adults. Sometimes they are being held responsible for maybe taking care of younger siblings or contributing to the household. And so if I need to see the doctor, but my mom can't take off, I need to be at home after school, can we network with Holy Redeemer to schedule a doctor's appointment during the school day, because we're right down the street, dismissing that scholar, allowing them to go check on their health or mental health, and then be able to come back to school. Without eliminating or interfering with any of the other responsibilities of the family or that scholar that has after school.
It's amazing to me because, again, so much of what you offer is free.
Yes.
And it's not just that the school's offering it, that you found ways like being able to reach out to Holy Redeemer and create these other partnerships where you're
Yes.
making sure that the child, the young adult, is getting a holistic approach. It's not just, hey,
Yes.
we're trying to shove this academics and we don't really care about what else happens. You're actually bringing it all together where, making sure that they're socially, they're emotionally, they're physically, they're
Yes.
mentally feeling strong enough, resilient enough to be able to do what they got to do.
Absolutely. And science shows us that, or research proves that, if a scholar is not well mentally or emotionally, little to no learning can happen. So we do wellness checks right at the door.
Mm-hmm.
If a scholar comes through the door and they are already aggressive, they are not saying good morning, you can already sense that their demeanor, we do not allow that scholar to go to class.
Okay.
We try to find out what is going on before we put them into that educational environment,
Mm-hmm.
to protect them, but to also protect the learning
Right.
environment. So we are very
Because there's 14
intentional
other
with the
people in that
things.
room that you don't want
Exactly.
to bring everybody else down
Yes.
because one is down already.
Yes. And as we know, the energy will begin to be matched, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure, but not only that, we don't want, I share with scholars, staff should not be ridiculed for doing their job. So if you've had a bad day or a bad night and you come to school and now I'm your instructor and I'm saying, okay, pull out your paper, pull out your pencil, and you explode on me, that's not fair to the staff.
Right.
So we want to make sure our staff have a safe work environment, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is healthy.
Right.
So if I'm noticing that a scholar is not well, how helpful will I be to even my colleague if I send that scholar in that classroom,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that they are not ready for
Right.
learning?
Right. But now, again, it's not that you're just pulling them out and they're done.
No.
You're just working on like, hey, what's going on? And like, how can
Yes.
we redirect?
Yes. Yes. What are the needs? Right. Unfortunately, we have scholars that may work third shift jobs. And I am just, Miss Isabel, I just need a 20-minute nap.
Mm-hmm.
I'll grant you your 20-minute nap. Because again, if that's what you need to come back, and I've had scholars take their break, I need a timeout. I need to tap out and
This is
come
great.
right back.
I'm so glad that you mentioned this because I took notes. So you talked to me when I was there about
Yes.
self advocacy. And would you
Yes.
just talk a little bit about self advocacy? And I know one of the examples of self advocacy at ASSATA is the ability to say, hey, time out. I need to
Yes.
step away,
Yes.
and nobody is going to come grab me because I need to step away. As long as I'm doing it in a productive and
Yes.
constructive way,
Mm-hmm.
we can have that conversation about this is my need. I need to step out.
Yes.
So, so just talk a little bit about what self advocacy looks like at your school.
So again, it's empowering our scholars to use their voice, um, and it's no more than communicating with my person of authority, whether it's the teacher, whether it's me as an administrator.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can have scholars sent out of a room and I can say, okay, give me your side of the story. And they say, I'm not ready to talk right now.
Mm-hmm.
I say, okay, tell me how much time you need. Give me 10 minutes. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Because without understanding their needs, they can't communicate that. And that's one of the biggest issues with our young adults,
Mm-hmm.
is being able to communicate their needs.
Yeah.
What do you need? I don't know. It's really interesting. Sometime when I'm doing observations, the scholars will tell the teacher, what do you want me to write? And because they're so used to everybody telling them and telling them and telling them,
Mm-hmm.
when do they have the knowledge to know this is what I need to do for me?
Mm-hmm.
And again, we say it so loosely. We want scholars to graduate and become productive citizens. What does that really look like?
And you got to do it my way.
Yeah.
The system, that's I think one of the things that struck me when I came to visit and when we had the conversation and took the tour is, you're not saying to the kids, hey, look, you got to do it this way or it's the highway. You're really trying to tailor this, as you said earlier, to make sure that you're meeting the needs of where they are today and where they're
Yes.
trying to get to. And I think that is just fundamentally different about the way you're approaching it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Humans are unique beings, right? So what worked for me may not work for you.
Hmm.
One of our professional development sessions this year was student choice. Um, it doesn't matter. Like, so if I'm an artist, but I'm not that good at writing, I understand the concept, but I want to draw out my understanding of it.
Hmm.
What's so wrong with that? Right. So being able to allow people to take the knowledge, or our scholars to take the knowledge that they are receiving, or even the redirection or the instruction, internalize it, interpret it according to their understanding, and then deliver the way they need to deliver.
Hmm.
Um, in the midst of being an administrator, I teach. I'm a licensed mathematics teacher and then a master's degree in education. I teach our geometry courses because not everyone really likes geometry. And when
Oh, I was
scholars
cool with geometry. It's the trigonometry
oh
that
yeah.
like threw me off. Like I was like, wait a minute, I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
So when a scholar raises their hand and say, Miss Isabel, can you help me? I say, tell me what you need help with. What is your understanding of this?
Hmm.
I want to be able to help you for where your misconception is, because there may not be a uh, the perspective, or you don't understand the entire thing. You may not just understand a component.
Hmm.
But without me understanding that or knowing that, I make the assumption that you understand none of it.
Right.
And sometimes that becomes frustrating with scholars because they say, I'm just asking her to help me. And I'm like, are you actually being precise on what the help is that you
But you
need?
bring this up, and it's come up multiple times in this interview about communication, right?
Yes.
And it's just amazing to me, even as you talk, how often in other environments, educational or otherwise, where we're really not even talking to each other, right? We got a topic, but we're not really communicating with each
Yes.
other. And so it's incredible to me the number of times why a kid might check out,
Yes.
because we're talking at people, and
Yes.
frankly the kids might be talking at somebody as well, and
Yes.
we're just missing each other completely in the conversation, getting down to, wait, what part of this, how do you think this works, being able to identify. It's forcing, or I shouldn't say forcing, it's encouraging the young
Yes.
person to communicate what they think they understand and what they need, at the same time the system being open to say, okay, well then, it's not all or nothing. It's, we're going to come back and focus on this piece.
Yes. Yes. Student choice.
But that is
And
so
this
fundamentally, it comes down to two words. Why ain't anybody else doing this?
and that's so true. And that's where I um for a lot of our scholars when they get to ASSATA, it's so like maybe awakening for them that, oh my God, like this is what it feels like to really be in an environment where I can thrive and I
Hmm.
can be myself and I can express myself.
Hmm.
And what's really interesting is now you'll start to see that. You'll start to see where I may think you have a problem with me. I'm really not sure, but I can request a mediation with you because I don't want my misconceptions to send me at a place where I'll be assuming something that should not be.
Yeah.
So we really talk about communication. And because
It's
there
a
are so
huge
many
issue around,
barriers.
sorry. There's also this, what just struck me is, how many times does it end up escalating
Yeah.
because of misperceptions on both
Yes.
sides, right?
Yes.
I think you come in with an attitude. I think, you're tripping. As
Yeah.
a result, we just miss each other, and it just
Yes.
escalates from there.
Yes.
And now nobody's got anything good going on.
And that is exactly true. And again, that also goes for the staff in the building, right? So
Hmm.
that's why we come to the table and have those conversations to repair the harm.
Yeah.
Right? I sometimes have to tell scholars, I apologize. That was not my intent.
Hmm.
And we have to understand that as they are young adults, they are also human beings. And so, also having those conversations, the diversity of our building, gender, age, ethnicity,
Yeah.
experiences, it because so much, there is so much diversity, we have to make sure that within our diversity, we also don't dismiss other people
Hmm.
because that's just not the way I was raised, or that's just not my experience. Okay, but I can't undermine who they are because it's not mine.
Right.
So we want to make sure that everyone in that building comes into that building feeling safe,
Yeah.
respected, and heard.
You use, if I understood correctly, you use an Afrocentric approach to education
Yes.
as part of this as well,
Yes.
right? So you're
Yes.
lifting up the heritage, the history, the culture as a part. So they're still going through all the regular curriculum, and
Yes.
they're still meeting all the regular requirements that they
Yes.
need to graduate from high school.
Yes.
At the same time, you're infusing that education with this Afrocentric. So can you talk a little bit about what that looks
Yes.
like?
So regardless of my content, I still incorporate cultural relevancy and cultural experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, for geometry, if my scholars are recreating a city, one of the things we studied was Black Wall Street.
Okay.
So, reconstructing this community, right, that was torn down. But now within my geometry lesson, I'm also learning social studies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm cross curricular so that they
And history.
understand how this component ties into. So now when I'm creating um, my transversal streets and my linear piers and my perpendicular streets, and I'm creating
Oh, wait a minute. Hold up. I,
cities and
I might have
things
to come
like
over
that.
here and like take this lesson. I,
When
I think
I'm
I might have missed some of
creating these
these.
things, I'm also taking into consideration how impactful that community was
Mm-hmm.
for my people, because a lot of the times our scholars don't know their history. They're
Mm-hmm.
not being taught it. And so within our environment, we also incorporate other cultural experiences.
Okay.
So it's not just a part of, okay, we're just going there. No, from my scholar who is Hispanic, we make sure we're recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month.
Mm-hmm.
From my other scholars, so it doesn't matter. We are cross culturing.
Okay.
And the one thing we teach our scholars is that if you were really to look at your DNA, you'll find out that you are multicultural, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we make sure that we are doing that, and not, but
Yeah.
being able to build up their self image and self
Yeah.
confidence so that they are comfortable being who they are.
You have a staff. Um, Talk a little bit about the teacher demographics of your
Yes.
school too.
Yeah. So we have predominantly male staff, which is
Okay.
really
Yeah, and this
interesting.
is why I'm really interested because again, we've got so many young adults who
Yes.
don't see role models, male role
Yes.
models in their lives,
Yeah.
and your school has done something very different,
Yes.
and offers something very different in terms of that.
Yes. So predominantly our staff is male, African American.
Mhm.
Um, and with that, it allows our male and female scholars to have that different perspective. And I have to tell my female staff, don't take it so offensively. Um, the reason for being is because a lot of our scholars come from households where they hear the female's voice,
Mhm.
right? And so sometimes your voice sounds like my aunt's voice, my mom's voice, my auntie's, like I need to hear somebody else's voice.
Mhm.
And so I tell female staff sometimes, don't take it personal. Sometimes I even refer scholars to the male staff
Mhm.
because it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so it's very rewarding in our building, how we can use that diversity again of experiences, right? We have our instructors are of every ethnicity, of our
Mhm.
basic
Yeah.
African American, Caucasian, Native American. So we have a melting pot in our building.
Mhm.
And so again, being respectful of those things, but still having those conversations. How do we have those conversations and still not demean
Mhm.
anyone?
Yeah.
So when Black Lives Matter movements was going on in the city of Milwaukee, we were having those conversations in our building,
Yeah.
still respecting everyone who was still a part of the conversation. Because again, if they're going to be productive citizens, our world is not made of one culture or
Right.
ethnicity. It is a melting pot. So how do I teach our scholars how to go out and be productive?
Well, I think the fact that you have so many male teachers just
Yes.
ends up being so many male role models in
Yes.
there. And as these young men and women, though, but particularly the young men are looking for, like, what's a man, right?
Yes.
What's a grown adult look like?
Yes.
And maybe having that absence, from the household, etc. This gives them a perspective about seeing somebody who's professional, who's
Yes.
helping others, who's really investing in, who's consistent, who's
Yes.
there. Um, Gives them somebody to kind of fall back to. And I know you talked as well about the fact that your teaching staff and the others who are at the school
Yes.
are all part of helping to encourage and to make
Yes.
recommendations for those young people so that they're not stuck where they were.
Yes. Yes. Even down to our building engineer, right? Like everybody
Well,
who
even
is
your
a
security
part.
staff.
Yeah.
I mean,
If you are a part of ASSATA's community, you are a part of ASSATA's community.
mhm,
And we need all hands, right? Because the impact that you may have may be very different from the impact that I have. And I say that because from an administrator, the scholars, my staff will say they really respect you or they listen to you. And I said, no, they don't listen to me sometime too.
mhm,
So I have to accept that they won't always do what I ask them to do
yeah,
neither. How do I not take that personal? Find out what the issue is, and then we begin to have a conversation
yeah.
so that we can continue to build the trust that is
Well, so
taking in
I really
place.
want to make sure, because you all gave me this handy list, and I just want to make sure, because there's some things that happen there that I don't know that they always happen everywhere,
Okay.
right? And so I love the fact that, okay, you have a boys to men male group, right?
Yes.
That's available. You talked to
Yes.
me about running rebels is there. So if I need to, like,
Yes.
if I need to remove myself from a situation and step
Yep.
out, I can do that. And
Yes.
there's going to be a mentor available to
Yes.
talk to me right then.
Yes. Yes. So that
I mean, so
scholars
far,
will
I've not seen that
request.
anywhere else.
No, and that's the uniqueness of our program. Is it's okay not to be okay in our
Yeah.
environment, right? I'm not okay right now, Miss Isabel. We have scholars dealing with anxiety, depression,
Mhm.
things of that magnitude. I have a young man, unfortunately, as he is kind of going through some things, sometimes he just blurt out in the classroom. And in that environment, it would be in some places a behavior issue to where it's up, but we see this as we're working with this family to find out what needs
Mhm.
need to happen for this young man
Yeah.
because this is not common. And because it's not common, how do we help him
Right.
before he becomes an adult on the
Right.
street? And unfortunately, something happens because no one didn't understand
Right.
his needs when he was a young person. I think Frederick Douglass has this quote that said, "We have to fix broken children before they become broken adults." Right?
Mhm.
It's better to fix the broken child than to
Mhm.
try to fix them when they become an adult.
Yeah.
And that's our perspective with our scholars. How do we fix them before now they're not going into a building and now when you're in adulthood is you do what I ask you to do or you leave,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Well, you also have the female group,
Yes.
and so talk a little bit about what that does.
So we're really getting into our females group a little more differently than we were in the past because unfortunately when we look at our data is showing us that the female to female confrontations are more significant than our males.
Okay.
Honestly, this year I have not had any male altercations in our building. I don't know if it's any wood. No, I'm just kidding. But our male scholars tend to be very collected. If there's a conflict, they'll come to the table and have a conversation. Our female scholars, not so much. And so we've been having one-on-one conversations about what does healthy relationship, female to female
Yeah.
relationships look like.
Mhm.
And what we have learned is that there are really no examples of them.
Mhm.
If you talk about, I had a young lady, we had a session and she said, aunties are so messy. I said, I'm offended because I'm an auntie.
Yeah.
She said, aunties sit at the table and they talk about your business. They tell all your business. That's what aunties do. But that's her experience.
Right.
So I
Right.
can't tell her, no, that's not what aunties do. Her experience is that that's how aunties are.
Mhm.
And so I asked them, give me one show, give me one TV show that shows female to female healthy relationships. There is none.
Yeah.
And so all they see is bickering, backbiting, fighting. jealousy. And one of my young
And
ladies said,
unfortunately, it makes for good TV because people will
it
get
makes
tuned
for
in for
good
the fight,
TV, but
right?
it's
Or
our kids' reality, right?
correct.
And so one of the young ladies said, Miss Isabel, I do not believe in friendships. You can be my friend today, but in the back of my mind, I know you're going to stab me in my back. And I said, so you don't believe that you cannot have a lifelong friend? She said, no, because
Wow.
they will defile your trust. They gonna try to get with your boyfriend. And I was cringing on the inside because I have a friendship of 20 years and we've never had. And I'm thinking, this is their reality.
Right.
And one young lady looks at me, she raises her hand and she says, we are a messed up generation.
And so there's a lot more repair. And I think that's why we wanted to make sure to highlight this school is the kids are dealing with so much more.
Yes.
And I think in too many in educational environments, they're like, look, I just got a job to do here.
Yes.
And so it's missing the point, because if you can't deal with the whole child, you can't get the education done. And so I thought that
Absolutely.
this is so important. But I know I'm looking at Jermaine, and Jermaine's gonna tell me we have to stop one more time. So okay, WNOV family, come right on back after this break. What's the difference between me and you? Me and you? Me and you? Of the difference with Will Martin. And today we've been talking with ASSATA High School's Tamika Isabel, who is one of the administrators there. And we're talking about how this school uniquely addresses children who are at risk of potentially dropping out, who are behind in school. But, there have been some incredible stories that you told me about
Yeah.
folks who came in one way,
Yes.
but they left at a very different way.
Yes.
And so, would you just kind of, talk about an example of one of the kids who came in maybe behind,
Yes.
but caught up?
So one example I'm going to use is a young lady by the name of Miss Diamond Carter. At that time at ASSATA, I was still a math instructor.
Mhm.
Diamond was one of my top students. And so during her senior year, she had come in, got caught up. Um, the school environment was just, it wasn't an environment that she was really feeling. Also, historically or generationally, her older sisters had graduated from ASSATA.
Mhm.
So when mom noticed this deficiency in her academics, her behavior, she reached out to ASSATA. I know what ASSATA can do because ASSATA has done this with my older children. So I am a alumni of Lane College. So when Diamond, her senior year, I had a conversation with Diamond and said, "So where are we going for college?" She's like, "I'm not going." I said, "Well, yeah, we're gonna go. How about you fill out this application to Lane College now?"
And Lane College is an HBCU.
It's a HBCU. The way I got to Lane is I had a social studies teacher who did a deal with me. His deal was because I wasn't going to college. I was not. I had lost my mother my junior year.
Wow.
So I just needed to get through a high school to figure out my life.
Mhm.
And my high school teacher said, I'll do a deal with you. You don't have to take your final exam. You have to do an application to a college. And I said, what? He's like, do an application to a college. And if you go, you promise me you go. If you get accepted. And if you don't get accepted, I won't say anything else to you.
Yeah.
Well, because I didn't think I had the grades to go to college because I didn't do well my freshman and sophomore year. So really I was an at-risk kid myself. I fill out the application believing that this is not going to happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
Several weeks later, I get an acceptance letter to college. And I'm thinking, how did I get accepted? So I do the same thing to Diamond, right? I tell Diamond, I need you to fill out this application.
Mm-hmm.
You have an AMI class. You have no need to take the final. Do the application. Well, I was still connected. So I call Lane College and I say, hey, I got this kid from Milwaukee. I need you to accept her. She will come and she will be great. So I had already got a call. Diamond been accepted, but I was not going to tell Diamond.
Yeah.
So Diamond comes to school one day with the biggest smile on her face with this big envelope. And I say, what is that? I got accepted to college, Ma. And I said, yeah, so we going. Diamond graduated studying mathematics, valedictorian of her class.
Wow.
She is now the dean of students at one of Hope Christian School campuses.
Now, see, this is what I'm talking about. So this is about meeting kids where they're at.
Yes.
And just because they happen to be behind when they got there does not equal they're always behind or dropping out. This is one of these kids you have saved.
Yes.
And who got just a little bit of grace and an opportunity and now is doing the same for other kids.
Yes. So we have just had Diamond's niece graduate 2 years ago. So we continue this family. A lot of our graduates are generational.
Yeah.
They went to traditional schools, but when they messed up, the family knew the impact of ASSATA and said, you're going to ASSATA.
Yeah.
Our principal is the one and only principal that has been the leader of ASSATA High School, and her mother was our founder.
Wow. Well, now look, I hear that music and I know I got to move fast. So how does somebody get into your school to come and visit? How can they become a student there? What do we do?
Okay, so you can give us a call at 414-345-6113.
Wait, what's that number?
414-345-6113. You can also go to Milwaukee Public Schools website and go under apply for a school, contracted schools, and then you can select ASSATA High School.
And I know on May 12th,
yes.
Monday, May 12th, you have a student open enrollment for next school year,
yes.
and that people can come that day and
yes.
check you out as well, right?
Yes, and that address is 3517 West Cortland Avenue. Again, 3517 West Cortland Avenue. Stop by and see us, wow. Open door policy, and we will do our best to serve you or your scholars.
Hey, so thank you so much for being a K-12 partner with us, ASSATA High School. Thanks so much, and WNOV family, until next time, peace out.